Welcome back to the DHD Racing Podcast. I'm Daniella and I'm here with Darine and Holly, and today we're going to talk about the Saudi Arabia Grand Prix. So, over the weekend, it was the Saudi Arabia Grand Prix over at Jeddah, and it wasn't the most exciting race, to be
No,
honest.
I thought it. Yeah. So, should we start with like opinions on the track and the race in general? Obviously,
Yeah,
Doreen, I feel like we should clarify,
yeah.
didn't
I didn't get to
this
watch
one.
it.
So
Yeah,
you're maybe listener POV if you
yeah,
didn't catch it either.
exactly.
I've not watched Jeddah before. I'd heard that it was quite a fast track. I'd heard it was quite a dangerous track at times. I didn't love it compared to some of the other races that I've seen. It felt very like it felt it felt very
Lackluster.
constricted. Yeah, it
Yeah,
felt very restricted. It didn't feel like the cars really had much room to fight a lot of the time. And the race in general, good at the start, but halfway to the end, it was very quite boring, I found.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
Daniela,
agree.
what did you
I
think?
was I was at the pub with my friends who I've now turned half of my course into F1 fans. So all at the pub, and then I was eating my little roast dinner that I ordered, and then halfway through the race, I forgot that I was there to watch the race, and I was eating my roast dinner, and I was like, "Oh my god, what's even happened? Have I missed
I
anything?"
went on
And
my
everyone else
phone.
was like, "No," and I was like, "I just went in my own little world because." Well, there was nothing happening, so I just was just eating my dinner and then realized that I should be watching the race.
yeah.
I
Because
just,
nothing was
I'm just,
happening.
Yeah.
nothing was happening. I'm just not a fan of Jeddah. I've seen every race that's been held at Jeddah, and I, it's just so controversial, but I'm not a fan of street circuits. I
Mm.
find that if there's not an opportunity to overtake, then
It is. It is.
at Jeddah there is
Yeah.
a bit more opportunity to overtake than say Monaco, for example. But why is there a massive long straight? Like
It just. It
I want
takes
these
away from.
like I want some more corners and like some more action on track. The
Yeah,
most
it takes
action
away from
we
the
got
excitement of the
was
race.
Max like working his way up the field. We didn't really see
Mm.
much of that. Um,
And I
and
feel like
yeah,
even when there are overtakes happening, there was like one Alonso overtake on like a corner somewhere that was really good. And then all of the rest of them were just down that one straight, and it happened in the exact same time, every single way. Someone would get DRS, they'd come up really close behind, they'd pull out, they would just shoot past them because it's such a long straight, there's no room to defend. And then they'd get to the end and they'd have already pulled out like a supermassive gap, so you'd have to wait like 2 laps before the other driver
yeah,
got a chance to attack back. And yeah, they got to this point by sort of like halfway through, I think, when all of the drivers who were in the top 10 had basically pulled a sort of 2 to 3 second gap between each driver. So, and nobody was gaining on anyone. Like it was just staying at 3 seconds between every single driver. And that was just that for the rest of the race.
I
It's
saw
just
something
so
about.
like
I saw something
dull.
about there was a fight for 13th place, and that was
That's how you
like
know it's
apparently
exciting.
that was the most exciting part of the race.
Who was fighting for 13th place? I can't remember that now. I think Yuki Tsunoda got 11th,
let
which
me get
was
it up.
good. I can't see
Yeah,
this is
K-Mag
what I
was
mean.
10th, Yuki was 11th. I think it might have been like the rookies, but I can't
Yeah,
remember.
It's good for
I'm
Haas
just getting it up
getting
now.
points though. I'm happy about that.
Yeah, I'm happy about that too. I think it was really good. They got some points this weekend.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
Um,
I don't know if I rate it. I don't think I rate it as like as a track in the same
yeah.
way that I enjoyed watching
okay,
Brazil.
so it was
Mm.
like Joe De Vries Piastri
Oh,
side by
I do
side.
remember that. I remember that a bit. I can't.
Yeah,
I think. Yeah, there were some good
especially
there were some good
Joe
battles
and
in
De
those
Vries
two.
specifically.
Mm.
Yeah, no, McLaren was struggling a little bit. Poor Oscar Piastri because he qualified quite well, and then there was. Oh yeah, we should probably mention this because
He
it's
got
a little thing.
he made contact with was it
Yeah, I think it was
who?
Pierre. Was it?
Yeah. Oh yes, no.
Might not. No, Pierre was last time. Maybe he.
Uh,
This is
I
bad.
can't
He made
remember.
contact with someone. He made contact with someone on the opening straight, and then had to come into the pit. Both McLaren cars were in the pits within the first 3 laps.
Oh
Like
my
it
God.
was, and then yeah, after that they were sort of running in the back 10 consistently, which is a shame because Oscar Piastri did qualify quite well this time, I think.
Yeah.
Like for a brief moment, there was an orange car in the top running of the cars, and then no more.
And then it was gone.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, no, it was not my favorite race, gotta admit. Yeah, Daniela, what are the moments that you wanna
Well, I
highlight?
guess we should probably really talk about everything that went on with the FIA and Alonso, even though it was majority of it was post-race. I do think it was quite important, and I feel like the FIA do need to work on like dishing out penalties during the race rather than after. Because it changes everything, and I think like if you are going to give out a penalty, it should happen during a race, in my opinion. People disagree with me, but I just think like let's leave that for on the track, not afterwards, because it's awkward when you watch a podium, then the podium changes, and then it changes back. Like it just feels very awkward, and it's not.
I just think
like
that
it's just unnecessary.
I think the penalties should be during the race so that drivers have a chance to do something about it, like bring it back. I think it's really like underhanded to give them a penalty after the race. There's nothing they can do to change it as well, because the incident happened mid-race. They had plenty of time to figure out what they wanted to do as well. They had plenty of time to announce it.
Yeah, I was talking to my dad about it because he watched the race, but like after. I don't even know where he watched it. I did ask him. He was like, I don't know, it's just on TV, and I was like, it's not though, Dad. So I don't know how he watched it, but he was like he didn't know anything about the like Alonso thing afterwards because he doesn't follow any of this online. He only watches the race and like he doesn't always
and then switches it off as well.
Yeah, and that's it. So he had no idea until I told him like the next day what was going on with the FIA and everything, and he was like, why didn't they give that out like when it was happening? And I was like, I don't know, Dad. I don't know. I'm not the FIA.
They didn't hold back when it came
to.
They didn't hold back when it came to Esteban. So
no, literally, they have like two levels, two different extremes, dishing out as many penalties as possible, or waiting till after the race to dish out
that's the thing. Like with Esteban, they made a decision straight away.
Yeah,
right away they were like, okay, penalty. We know, like straight away. But for some reason, this time it took them 5 million years. Anyways,
it was ridiculous.
Holly, you were gonna say something.
I was just gonna say I don't mind giving out penalties after the race, but what I do mind is giving out penalties after the race for something that happened halfway through the race. Because I was just thinking about obviously the thing that happened in Abu Dhabi with Lewis and Max, and that was something that I do think they should have addressed after the race, and then they were like, no, it's been done now, the race results happened, we can't change
That's
it.
true. Yeah,
that was quite a blatant thing. I think they should have
like if it happens close to the end, then like fair enough. But if it happens in the middle of the race, like you have time.
I mean, that's why Alonso got it back, is because they took too long. I'm sure they have like a 20 or 30 minutes.
It's like 25 minutes and they went 35
minutes. It went over the limit. But you'd think somebody would have checked that when they were about to hand the penalty out, and someone would have been like, oh, someone go check a stopwatch, will you? Like make sure that we're still within the time limit. And then also, how did it take them that long to even address the penalty? Because Esteban comes out of the pit and he got the notification for the infraction like straight away. Alonso, it was like 20 minutes. And then they were like, Alonso's getting a possible penalty. And I was like, what for? And then they're like, the pit stop. I'm like, the pit stop? That was ages ago. Like, they should have. I don't understand why it took them so long, because also it was such a blatant. Like, you could see the guy had moved it.
Exactly.
That's the rule. It's not like it was a difficult one to pick up on.
Yeah.
So they should have picked up on it sooner. They should have realised that they'd taken too long sooner. Like, they should never have been that back and forth with it.
But like,
if they knew what they were doing.
How awkward for Alonso and George. Like, Alonso being told he celebrates on the podium, right? Then it goes to George, and then George is like, "Yay! I didn't get to be on the podium, but at least I'm third." Like celebrating, and then they go, "Oh, sorry, George. Actually, we are going to give it back to Alonso." Like that must be really awkward and uncomfortable.
What was the point?
Yeah,
Well,
I
it was
just
it was uncomfortable for George. I think Alonso quite enjoyed it. I don't know if you
yeah.
guys saw his tweet.
You just
I think over on Twitter, Alonso was having a great time.
This is endearing him to me more. The fact that he seems to understand like Gen Z internet
Gen Z
humor,
humor.
despite the fact that
Yeah.
he's in his 40s.
Hola.
I love it. I do think he runs his own social media. I hope he does. He seems
I
like the
really
kind of
hope
person
so.
who would. I want him to.
I
He has
really
to at
hope
least have
so.
approved it, right?
That's the thing. They have to like tell him, "Hey, we're gonna do this." At the very least, he has to be aware of
Yeah.
what's being made,
Mm.
what
I
content's
can
being.
picture them doing that. Someone in his PR team going, "Oh, hey, you all right with this?" And he looks at it and goes, like, laughs or something, and it's like, "Yeah." So I think I hope
So I
he's
think it'd be
happy with
even
it.
better if
I'd
he
like
did
to
it. Like,
imagine.
I like to imagine
Yeah.
like it was his idea.
He went
I'd
through and
like to
found a
imagine he's like,
photo.
guys, let's do this.
So did you think his PR team is just sort of going like, "No, Alonso, please, please, it's going to be a disaster," and he's like, "No, it's funny, guys, I'm doing it to the
No, I'm
fans."
doing it. You can't stop me.
I feel like Fernando Alonso is kind of the definition of do it for the fans. Do you know what I mean?
Oh
Like he just
yeah,
gives off that energy to me.
yeah.
So I feel like we need to talk about Ferrari.
Oh
I
yeah.
think we all kind of thought they were
Where
going to
were
come
they?
back a bit stronger, but
Where were
Don't
they?
even.
where were
I'm
they?
devastated.
What confused me is that Ferrari and Mercedes for this race seem to have swapped places almost. It
Mm.
was like Mercedes were doing the kind of just brushing the top that I would normally expect from Ferrari, and Ferrari were doing the just barely escaping the midfield that I've come to expect from Mercedes, and I don't
Mm.
understand how.
What has happened? I'm devastated.
Can we also talk about what on earth was going? Because Charles, it seemed like Carlos had a pretty simple race, maybe not the one he wanted, but nothing seemed to go monstrously wrong. What's going on with Charles's race engineer? Like, I mean, he spawned a new meme, which is fantastic, but like, like
Honestly,
how are you at a point where you're actively race managing your driver, whatever it is, and they have
and
to
you
be like,
can't.
Harvey, you have to tell me this sooner. Like, that should not
Where's
be
the
the
clown
kind of thing that you
makeup?
hear.
Honestly,
Yeah,
Where is it?
that should not be leaving a driver's mouth during a race. Like, surely as a race engineer, you should know.
you
I,
should be doing a
and
little bit better than that.
he sounded so frustrated. So it sounded like something that wasn't.
It's
It,
like this can't be the first time.
yeah, that's what I got the vibe. It wasn't the first time that he's felt frustrated with that, and I don't know. I was just a bit like, how's that happened?
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh my God.
I said that I didn't want to be a depressed Ferrari fan again, and I was going to try and remain optimistic, but I think I'm
I'm
going to
still
be
holding out
depressed
hope.
Ferrari fan.
Red Bull had like 2 or 3 terrible races at the start of last year, so like maybe it'll be fine. But
We'll
maybe I
see.
should
We'll
stop
see.
making predictions since I should probably stop making predictions since my Oscar Piastri one has effectively killed that poor man's career at this point, which I feel very guilty about. So I might just stop doing that now. I feel like I hold too great a power.
Oscar, we apologize, Oscar. We are
I
so
know.
sorry. It is all our fault. It's GHG Racing's
Sorry.
fault. We're so sorry.
You might think it's because the car is not fast enough. It's not, it's me.
To make it up to you, you can come on our podcast and we'll turn everyone into an Oscar Piastri fan.
Absolutely. I don't know if he's gonna go for that, guys.
It was
I
worth
think
a shot.
I
Holly.
love that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, Ferrari, that was depressing. I didn't enjoy watching Ferrari. But I didn't see them. They were pretty chill for most of
Yeah.
it. Like
At least like nothing drastically bad happened to Ferrari this week.
That's the
they
thing.
both finished.
I feel like that's an
Yeah.
improvement.
That is an improvement. I'll
What?
take that.
Yeah.
Where are they in the driver's standing, actually?
Let me
Because
just
if Red Bull
I think
first,
they're fourth.
I'm assuming it's Aston
Construct.
Martin or Mercedes second.
Yeah, it's
Obviously,
Aston second,
Martin,
Third.
Aston Martin second, Mercedes third, Ferrari fourth.
the fact
So,
that it's Aston Martin
Aston
second,
Martin and Mercedes are joint on points with
I was going to say
38
that
points.
the fact that Lance didn't finish this week, I was like,
Yeah.
that's impressive.
And then Ferrari are behind with 26 points.
See, that's not good for Ferrari. They were fighting for first last year. That's quite.
But
That's
there is
quite
a bit of a
Quite
gap
shocking.
then between Ferrari and Alpine because Alpine's on 8 points and Ferrari's on 26. So there's
I
a
just think
gap.
they've had a bad couple of races and they can bring it back.
I'm hoping so.
Just because they've had a lot of problems with Charles's car, so I think they can bring it back. It's just been a few bad races, guys.
Yeah,
Me,
and I think
delusional.
like bearing in mind that
Delusional Ferrari
Charles had a 10-place grid penalty,
Exactly.
like I think he did quite well.
I think
He did really well to fight his way up that far. I think also
Yeah.
maybe it's possible that the track, again, maybe Jeddah doesn't suit them as much. It's possible that on a different track the car
so.
might be a bit better. Because again, I felt like this track was holding back a couple of the teams. I don't know. But it's interesting that my prediction of having a fourth team jump up to fight with the top seems to be coming true a bit.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
I'm just like looking at the constructor standings, and McLaren is like right at the bottom.
Yeah.
That's
And
like,
I
Yeah.
used
isn't
to
that
be a
the
McLaren fan. I still kind
Zero.
of am, and that just makes me really sad.
Zero.
how are the rest of them? So it's Alpine, McLaren at the bottom, who's in between? What order?
I think there's like 2 teams with 0 points.
So yeah, so
What's the
there's
rest of the
McLaren
order?
with 0 points, AlphaTauri with 0, Williams with 1, Haas with 1, Alfa Romeo with 4, Alpine with 8, Ferrari with 26, Mercedes 38, Aston Martin 38, Red Bull at 87.
I am so happy for Williams and Haas this year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I am.
Very happy for them.
Because it was always like a joke that like, oh, Williams and Haas always being at the back. Who's at the back now?
Oh, this
McLaren.
year.
Exactly.
So, shall we move on to Red Bull?
I think we
Yeah. I think you can't really
Ah.
talk about Formula One this season by avoiding them, can you? Like,
should. Mm-hmm.
they're just insane. Like, genuinely
feel like-
unreal.
I feel like that kind of huge lead is ruining it. It's ruining the fun of Formula One. And you could say, oh, but Mercedes used to do that. I don't think they ever did it to this extent. I feel like there was still a little bit of excitement. From
Growing
what I
up,
saw,
like
yeah.
that's why I wasn't a Mercedes fan because they always won, and I'm not a Red Bull fan because they always win. Like I want something a bit more exciting.
Yeah.
No fun,
So,
yeah.
Yeah,
It's
but
my I was watching with my dad this race, and he doesn't watch every race regularly, so he's not. I don't think he watched Bahrain, but we were watching, and they got got to stuff like when Max had come from 15th to second in about 12 laps, and then they pulled ahead by like 17 seconds, the nearest car, and he said something like, "That's embarrassing for the other teams that they are that far ahead." I'm like it's not even just from one race you can kind like it's true. Like it doesn't make any sense because the regulations haven't changed that much. I don't know how much the cost cut thing would affect it. Also, I don't know, but I don't understand how they've managed to progress, and the other teams, it seems like all of them have gone backwards in comparison. Like it genuinely is a bit like, what have you guys been doing?
yeah,
Hang on,
Yeah,
guys.
it's just
Hang on.
bless
Bless
you.
Thank
it's
you.
just
Okay, carry on. You can
yeah,
edit that out.
it's just ridiculous. Daniela.
It's just like I don't know. Like I want to like congratulate Red Bull on doing so well and being that far ahead, but also what I love about racing is those will-to-will battles for first place or just well, really any position, but specifically like at the front of the field. Like that's why I love F2 so much. There's constant battles the whole way through a race. But
The thing that gets
here
me, and
with
this
F1 is not always the case.
it was the DRS mechanic or the DRS thing on their car that the commentators kept mentioning it. Every time Max would overtake someone, they mentioned something that the DRS on the Red Bull seemed to give them more speed, like a bigger speed boost than the DRS on the other cars. In the other cars would get a bit of a speed boost down that straight, but when the Red Bull would hit the DRS, they would just fly past, like unbelievably quick.
Mhm.
And like obviously on a track like Jeddah, where that's basically the only point you can overtake, like no one can defend against that because the straight's so long. So it just made it, I think, very easy for them. And then obviously you've got Checo in front, who's already brilliant at defending. He's already like king of all of the street circuits. So no one was gonna take that one from him, I don't think. I think he was meant to win this one. I was quite happy for Checo actually. I was quite glad he won this one.
Yeah,
but
I was happy for Checo.
But yeah, it just sort of like, and I what I'm hoping is that we might, because it's clear that Red Bull are going to be super dominant this season. So what I'm hoping is that maybe we'll get a kind of Hamilton Rosberg-esque battle between the two Red Bulls for the championship spot, because they're both pretty level at the moment. But that remains to be seen, I suppose, because obviously Checo wasn't super close to Max last year. But that's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah.
Oh,
Let's see.
we should probably also talk about quickly that fastest lap point? Because I obviously Darine, you didn't watch it.
yes.
Daniella, I don't know what you heard about what was going on.
I was
with
seeing
them.
stuff about this afterwards. Yeah.
I heard a little bit, and so for context, I watch F1 at the pub with my friends, so we don't always hear the commentation. That's not what it's called, commentary. Commentation's not a word, is it?
I don't
I
think
think
so,
it
but
is.
I love it. I think if it's not a word, it should be a word.
Like I used to say when we studied English lit at school, Holly, if Shakespeare can make up words, why can't I?
So yeah, so
Exactly,
can you.
literally.
But yeah, so I don't always get to hear the commentary, so I didn't really hear much of it. But I had my laptop with me, and so I had all of the standings. I could see the track and like where every driver was on the track because I have F1 TV. But I also had the commentary, like the written commentary, so I could see that. And so I did see bits of it, but I mostly saw like after the race what Checo had been saying. But Holly, if you want to kind of maybe
Yeah,
talk us through
so
it a bit.
what it looked like during the race was basically during the last half of the race, like I said, there was this 2 second gap between every single car in the top 10, including Max and Checo, and then there was a 17 gap between Max and the car closest behind him. So it's just the two Red Bulls out in front. And then they basically just sort of settled down. So there was about, I think, a 6 second gap between Checo and Max, and it just stayed there the whole time. It didn't really seem like Max was pushing it. Checo, they were sort of trading fastest laps back and forth. Like Checo would have it for a bit, Max would have it for a bit. And then there was a point at the end where Checo had it for quite a while. And then a bunch of funny stuff came over the radio. So there was a thing where Checo was talking to his race engineer, and the race engineer said, "You want to aim for this lap time, I think." And then he asked a question, "What are you telling Max to aim for?" And the time that they were telling Max to aim for was faster. So I think Max was aiming for like something 32, and they were telling Checo to aim for something 33. And then Checo was like, why are you telling me to drive slower? Like, what is this? So he was like visibly a bit confused about that, which I thought was funny. And then Max was on the radio saying, "Does Checo have the fastest lap? Like, what time do I need to be doing to get fastest lap?" And the race engineer goes, "We're not worrying about that." And then Max
I
goes,
heard
"Well,
that's
you're
what I
not, but
heard.
I am."
That's
So I
what
thought that
I
was
heard.
funny. I thought that was funny, and also just a good response from Max there. Like, I don't understand how the drivers
we're
can
not
be that
concerned with
snarky.
that. Yeah, they go, we're not concerned with that, and he goes, yeah, but I am.
Yeah, which is fair to him. I thought that was a good response. But like, so then he's asking that, and then yeah, they Checo's got the fastest lap to the last lap, and then Max gets it on the last lap. He takes that point, and then obviously that was the point that would decide who was leading in the championship, was that fastest lap point. And then there was like, oh, there's like another element to that I've gone and forgotten because I'm an idiot. I think it was Checo said something afterwards that he said some comment, I think, that implied he'd not been getting the same information as Max.
Yeah, I saw that.
He said something.
He said
I think it was
something
in
like
relation to the lap times.
they were telling Max something, but they weren't telling me everything. Or I might be able to find it actually.
I think it might be possibly in relation to the fastest lap stuff, but then I also think it's funny because obviously, like I said, that gap between them, that 6 second gap, wasn't coming down at all over the last half of the race. And then Max just goes and gets fastest lap on the last one. So what I thought, and what my dad thought as well, was that Max was basically just driving conservatively. And once he'd hit the end, knew he was going to finish the race, he was like, "I'll go for fastest lap now." Which I think is super interesting because I'd presumed up to that point that Max was trying to catch up to Checo and wasn't able to do it. But if what was actually going on was that he'd figured, I don't have enough time to overtake Checo and ensure that the car finishes. So what I'll do instead is drive conservatively to save the car and then just hit the fastest lap because that'll get me what I want to do. That completely changes it because that still implies that Max could have caught up to him, just maybe not enough to overtake him. I don't know. It just kind of changes what was going on there from my eyes. Because what I thought was happening was that he was trying to catch up and couldn't. But I think maybe he
chose not to. Yeah.
I think maybe he was deliberately holding back.
Okay, I found the quote. So, he said that 2 laps from the end, they told me to keep a certain pace. They told me I had the fastest lap and to keep the pace. I thought the communication was the same to Max, so it was something we need to review. I certainly got different information.
See, this is what I mean. I think there's some interesting tension with the Red Bull drivers at the moment, especially following on what happened in Brazil. Like I know that they're doing a whole everything's fine now, but everything clearly was not fine in Brazil, and then clearly there was some stuff going on at Jeddah that was also a bit off. So
yeah.
they're interesting pairing, and I think as well because people have been saying that the car's already so set up for Max's driving style anyway. The fact that Checo's doing so well in it still
is very very
So,
impressive.
yeah. And it must be hard as well to be second driver in a team with a driver that's as good and as like dominant as Max Verstappen is.
Yeah.
Which is only complimenting both of them. Like like, that's meant in a way that's complimentary to both of them. But yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
That whole dynamic I could really see going up in smoke. If Checo challenges Max consistently, I feel like that could be a bit of a
I agree.
Okay, so Lewis made a comment about Red Bull, saying that it was the fastest car he has ever seen. What are your guys' opinion on this? Because I think it's very interesting, especially as Mercedes dominated pretty much from 2014 to, well, 2020, 2021-ish. So I think that they've had a fast car. They know what it's like to be in Red Bull's position. Do you think that like Lewis was saying this almost to kind of gain some sympathy, or do you think it's the truth?
What I find interesting is that Toto disagreed with him. I don't know if like maybe Toto is remembering the glory days, so like the details and like what actually happened is a bit like not there anymore. Like maybe he's like over glorifying the glory days, and maybe Lewis is like telling the truth of it is the fastest car I've ever seen, and Toto's just like looking back too fondly at the memories. Or maybe I don't know. Or maybe Toto's.
I saw this graphic on Instagram, and I can't cite who it is or even if it's that factual. So again, I might be talking rubbish. But I saw this graphic on Instagram that was comparing the lead of various leaders, how far away the winning car was from the second car over the championship. And Max Verstappen last year was the furthest by far. So even like the furthest of Lewis in his most dominant season, Max Verstappen last year was ahead. So and obviously they've got more races now and things like that would affect the numbers. So that obviously is more in line with what Lewis was saying. But then it's possible that because there were less races, Mercedes dominance felt as unbeatable, perhaps as Red Bull's is feeling now. But yeah, I think it's an interesting comment, especially in regards to Lewis's comment also lines up with what George said at the first race, because he predicted Red Bull was going to win every race this season. So the fact that the two drivers there are agreeing, and obviously they're the ones who are on track fighting against the cars, I could see Lewis maybe having that one.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
Okay, so are there any other things we want to talk about, like other teams?
Trying to think. Yuki Tsunoda had another decent one. I was glad to see Kevin get the point, obviously, but I was sad for Yuki because he was quite close, and I think he's been doing a really good job so far. So I'll just mention that. Props to Tsunoda. Is there something about Alpine that you mentioned earlier?
I just think they had quite a good weekend. If we look back at Bahrain when Oscar, that's not his Alpine. When Ocon was getting all of those penalties. And even though like Pierre did have a good weekend, I think we were a little bit unsure. Like, I'm losing my voice, I'm so sorry. I think we're a little bit unsure about where Alpine were heading, like if they were that good, because in the end Ocon did DNF back in Bahrain. But I was actually quite nicely surprised this weekend. They both got points. I think they finished 8th and 9th. and it seemed overall quite a good weekend for Alpine, and I'm hoping that this is gonna it's gonna continue like that, and they're gonna get
Continue,
better and
yeah.
better.
Mm.
Yeah,
The fact
that's
that
what I'm hoping.
they were putting pressure on Mercedes for quite a large amount of the race, and then putting pressure on Ferrari for quite a large amount of the race, I thought was quite
It's
good.
very impressive.
Yeah,
Definitely an improvement from Bahrain for sure.
yeah, definitely.
This is not
Daniela,
related at all. But is Drive to Survive renewed for another season or not?
I've not
Ooh,
heard
I
of
think it
anything
is.
yet.
I've not heard that they've been renewed, but at the end of season 5, they did put a little like next season coming up.
No way are they not doing a season 6. They're on a high at the moment. They're
That's
not
the thing.
milking this cash cow
How
until
long?
That's the thing.
forward.
I don't see why they wouldn't,
How
because
many seasons
this
do you
is
think they'll do?
I reckon they'll hit 10. Easy.
yeah.
They'll hit 10. People might start getting bored of it, and then they'll drag it out for a couple. It might be supernatural style.
Yeah.
15 seasons, they'll start getting bored of it, and then
Yeah.
it'll go.
Until people are begging them, please stop.
Yeah, Charles will be like 45 years old or something, and they'll be like, "We don't care about this anymore." That's what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I reckon they'll go for a while. There's no way that they're not doing this season with the amount of people who watched.
Exactly. I think they're at their
Anyway.
peak right now.
Yeah,
They're at their peak. So it doesn't make sense that they would not renew.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, Daniela, do you have anything else written down?
no, we've ticked every. Oh wait, no, we haven't talked about Albon and Stroll and their DNFs. I'll just briefly, briefly mention it, but I think Albon's was brake issues and Stroll's was an engine failure of some sort. And Albon said in an interview afterwards that this was like a different kind of disappointment because it wasn't disappointment in the fact like the car isn't good and it doesn't have pace. Like it's a promising disappointment. So he knows that even though he had a brake failure, he knows the car has pace. And so he's actually feeling kind of optimistic. And I'm excited for that because we're coming up to Australia, and Australia was where Albon got his first points in the Williams last season. So I'm hoping that maybe this could be a really great track for Williams, and that maybe we might see Albon and Sargent both in the points in Australia. I don't know if I'm just being too optimistic, and there's probably people shouting at me who are listening, going, "No, you're being silly." But I'm gonna remain optimistic and hope that we are gonna see Williams do well and get some more points.
I hope so.
I think Williams look really strong this year. Touch wood, so I don't ruin their career.
That is me touching wood. Sorry.
I think their team looks really strong. Alex is obviously really good. Logan Sargent has just genuinely really surprised me with how confident he's been and like how solid. Because I feel like he's come pretty solidly. Like he's never been. I mean, I might be wrong about this. I've kind of forgotten he was in the back, but he wasn't like coming dead last basically in either of the two races, as far as I could tell. So that was pretty impressive, and the car's clearly decent. So I think Williams could be making some steps forward, which is lovely. I'm so happy for them to be doing that because they're kind of like the last of those old like family-owned legacy teams, aren't they? And it'd be such a shame if they got lost.
Yeah, it's kind of a shame now that like for the last 2 years we haven't really had a family member of Williams being a part of the team. Like the last was Claire Williams. So it would have been nice if like maybe I don't know if she'd stuck for a few years like longer, if they would have come out of it like how they are now, if they did just need a change.
This is a whole other conversation, but that poor girl, she deserved better. I feel like they blamed her for a lot of the problems at Williams that weren't her fault.
But obviously they were going to. She was a female.
Of course.
They were gonna do that without a doubt.
Yeah.
If Susie Wolff had taken over Williams, and even if they were as good as they are now, or even if they were better and they had a slight problem, Susie would have been just ridiculed for it.
If Susie Wolff was head of Mercedes right now, she would be getting all of the backlash that Claire faced.
Yeah.
At Williams.
Mm-hmm. But because
But yeah.
Toto's a man, it's
No
fine.
one's saying, hey Toto, you're messing up.
Yeah.
But everyone was saying, hey Claire, you're messing up. You know,
Yeah.
like, yeah.
Anyway, we might have to leave that conversation there.
That is, yeah, that's what I was
I think
saying. Like,
it's
that's a
good.
whole conversation
Yeah.
for another day.
Yes.
That
Yeah.
poor girl.
Anything else anyone else has to add?
How was F2? I didn't watch it. Daniella, did you watch it?
Oh yeah.
I did. It was more interesting than Formula One. I didn't watch the sprint, only the feature because again I was at work, so I missed it. But yeah, it was more interesting. I know that there was some stuff, again with Ollie Behrman. Again, like he was doing well, and we thought like he was gonna finish quite high, and then as we get closer to the end of the race, it seems like it's going really well for him, and then we're getting closer to the finish, and then it's like he just kind of loses it a bit, which is quite sad. I think Frederick Vesti won the feature race this weekend, and it was looking like Leclerc was quite strong, but then he hadn't pitted, so they pitted him like a couple laps before the end when he was in first. So I was like, oh no, I wanted Leclerc to win. Obviously, I don't think it would have actually happened because
I
he
saw
hadn't
about
pitted.
that. There's a curse on the Leclerc boys, honestly.
But no, it was quite interesting to be fair. So I'm looking forward to more F2 and F3 races. I think Australia, we might have both of them. I think it's the first time that both F2 and F3 are racing in Australia. So
Really?
it's exciting.
I might see if I can catch that.
Holly, I don't want to disappoint you, but that's gonna be at like 3 a.m.
I might not see if I can catch that.
I don't know the exact times. All I know is that the time that the Australian Grand Prix starts is the time I have to catch my bus, which is 6 a.m. And I'm just
I
praying.
think it's like 6 or 7.
Yeah, I'm just praying that my 4G works and that I can watch a race.
It's another Japan situation. Oh God. I remember waking up at 6 in my uni accommodation at 6 a.m. to watch that race, and then because it got delayed, I was like, I could have slept until 8.
Yeah, I remember that. I'd been on a night out the night before, and I still woke up to watch the race.
You didn't.
I went to bed at like 1 a.m. and I woke up for the race at 6 a.m.
Oh my God.
Ooh.
That is
dedication.
For Daniella. For anyone listening and doesn't know this, Daniella goes to bed at 10 o'clock every single day. So for her to go to bed at 1 a.m. is insane in of itself.
That is, yeah.
And then also
just me going out of my house is like that's like a big thing. I don't do stuff like that very often. And then I just remember like all evening being like, I have to get up and watch the race tomorrow. And I don't know if I'm gonna be able to. And we were like they all continued going clubbing afterwards. And I didn't go with them. I went home. Yeah. Yeah. But F1 comes first.
Always. It's the Grand Prix. Never miss the Grand Prix.
Thank you very much for listening to DHD Racing Podcast. We hope you'll tune in to our next episode.